group of game developers into a haunted office.
The building is scary as it might sound.
Apparently there's actually a ghost or something that lives here or haunts this place.
Give them a determined leader with a vision.
Dave Jaffe's a very interesting man.
He can be a complete asshole, quite frankly.
And you'll get a game that takes everything to the edge and beyond.
God of War is the game that I've wanted to make since I was a little kid.
It's a hardcore game. It's gross. There's blood and guts, but it's a challenge.
There's this great big high adventure, hyper-violent, overly sexual, adult action-adventure game. That's kind of God of War in a nutshell.
This is a behind-the-scenes look at the making of God of War. In the era when the PlayStation 1 is king, a team of veteran game developers strike out on their own to create Sony Computer Entertainment Santa Monica.
They were building like the studio, and I'm like, oh my God, who's this quack?
Playing a key role in this newly formed company is David Jaffe, a man with very particular talents.
He can be a complete asshole, quite frankly. He says exactly what is in his head at any given moment.
So I'm like, this is my one shot, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm not cutting shit.
And that can be very, very amusing.
They've done some really crappy, low-budget fighting games. It's like, this game sucks.
He wants to see his vision carried out, and he's very particular, and he knows what he wants.
The company's new offices are every bit as unique as the people inside them.
A lot of the guys who had worked on Twisted Metal and who worked on Jet Moto really all decided to get together and open up a new studio. We started the studio with the intent to create new franchises for Sony and for PlayStation 1 at the time, and now PlayStation 2. We probably started with about 13 people, and from there we just expanded, hiring people from Los Angeles and other game development companies. I think we have probably about 60 people here in Santa Monica. We came into this building somewhere around 2000, but it used to be this kind of old train station, like back in the 20s.
The building is as scary as it might sound, a brick building in the middle of California, which is a little bit, if you need earthquakes and so forth, but it already kind of has an industrial feel to it because there's very little offices and there's exposed piping and rafters and so forth.
Some even say it's haunted.
Apparently there's actually a ghost or something that lives here or haunts this place, and I love ghosts. I love the whole concept of ghosts, and I would love to see this thing, and I've never seen it.
Yeah, there's been rumors of ghosts that walk the mezzanines at night.
It's always the guys who are like, oh, you know, I saw it out of the corner of my eye, or I saw it and you were in the bathroom, or you were home, and I'm like, damn, I just missed it.
I don't know, I haven't seen anything myself, but you never know.
Ghosts aren't enough to keep this team from making their first game.
We originally decided to make a racing game because we thought it would be relatively easy, and that was Kinetica.
It's this futuristic racing game where you're zooming around inside these tubes.
But Kinetica is only a warm-up.
At the end of Kinetica, we decided that we really needed to try and make something more ambitious.
We wanted to do something AAA, and we knew we wanted to do something third-person action game. We took like 6 months and just threw out as many ideas as we could come up with. The first idea that Dave ever came up to me and goes, what do you think about making a Greek mythology game? I'm like, that's awesome.
So I was just like, you know, it just seemed like a really good fit. The action-adventure genre with this sort of subject matter that really hasn't been touched on all that much in video games. There have been a few games, but for the most part, and certainly for a long time, nothing has really been dealing with that subject. So I think that was when I realized those two things could fit together so nicely that it was like, dude, we gotta make this game.
The name of this new action-adventure game is God of War.
I went to the VP of production, who is a very smart man. And I said to him, I want to do God of War. And I pitched the whole thing, and he just looks at me and he says, there's nothing innovative about that at all. And I was like, oh, he's going to say no, you know. But he was just like, you know, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and make that game. And I was like, I don't think there's any value to being innovative for the sake of being innovative. I just want to make something that's fun.
In 2001, the team gets a green light for God of War and sets out to prove their critics wrong. Now that God of War has a green light from Sony, David Jaffe and his development team in Santa Monica roll up their sleeves and get to work.
You go through and you read all the Greek mythology that you could get a hold of.
We did the movie watching, then a lot of book research, like, you know, most of us haven't done mythology reading since maybe 5th grade.
You really have to sort of start making the game. You meet with your programmers and tell them what you want to do, and you meet with the artists, you meet with the designers, and everybody just, at that point, start contributing to that vision.
He describes it as a mix between Gladiator and Harryhausen's Clash of the Titan type movies. He was trying to mix that old school Harryhausen look with the blood and guts and violence of Gladiator.
The main thing about Greek mythology is coming up with the characters, right? And so everybody knows what Cyclopses are and Medusas are and Minotaurs, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's one of the benefits of our game is that there's already kind of a familiarity with it.
The team breathes new life into some classic creatures.
As far as tone for God of War, we're trying to tap into, I'll say, the darker recesses of what kind of goes on in the human psyche.
All right, I'm ready. Okay, performance ready?
The aspects that you don't really like to think about.
Action. Get out of my head, Rich!
We're trying to make more prevalent, brought to the surface on all the characters.
You all right? That didn't hurt, did it?
No, not at all.
If it's the centaur, what was it about the centaur that really made you afraid to be near one? What was it of those driving things? Was it the hooves? What is it that's causing you to fear all those things? Those are the aspects that we were trying to bring to the surface.
We just have to sort of come up with a good twisted look on it. And when the character artists go out and they start developing that concept, they just go crazy on it.
In the final version, he actually cuts the legs off. The pieces are kind of flying off.
If you see what Medusa looks like in our game compared to probably what she looks like in Clash of the Titans, it's completely different. Our Medusa sure looks freaking cool.
But giving mythological creatures a new look isn't their biggest challenge.
The hardest thing about coming up with the Greek mythology angle was coming up with who the main character was going to be. We probably spent, I think, a year and a half before we came up with sort of the final look of Kratos.
With Kratos, what I wanted to do was really create a character that, I mean, I'm a short guy. I'm 5'6", 5'7", something like that. I've put on 40 pounds in God of War. I am not Kratos, but inside I am.
We're gonna rally the troops! We're gonna burn this city!
I have the tenacity, I have the ferocity, I have the anger, I have the capacity for violence that this guy does. For me, it's almost like I want to make the guy that I wish I could be.
Aspects of Kratos that we really wanted to convey was the raw, brutal aggressiveness. That way, anybody that's playing the game can really tap into the most cathartic aspects of their own personality.
He's violent, brutal, he's nasty, he's vicious.
It kind of broke from some of the norms with a generic Greek soldier. What's about the tattoos? What's mystical about it, as well as this white skin? Not to mention all the scars, the wrath. All these elements kind of combined together shows just how tough this guy is.
By the gods, why would Athena send one such as you?
The cast of supporting characters reads like a who's who list of Greek mythology.
We have all of the main gods. We have Zeus and Ares and Athena, and they're all bickering like they are in the classic stories. We have these oracles all over the game.
Do not fear, Kratos. I am the Oracle of Athens.
They're very sexy and sexual. I mean, sexuality is a big part of God of War as well. There's a lot of nudity in the game. I think the biggest freedom we had was when we realized, we don't have to stick to the myths. We don't have to make a history lesson. It's a really exciting subject matter, but what we decided to do was almost take like the greatest hits of Greek mythology, the things that everybody knows, and let's just make a story around that. And if it doesn't totally fit with the actual ancient Greek myth, that's not as important as, is it simply entertaining?
As the characters for God of War are fleshed out, the developers at Sony Computer Entertainment Santa Monica shift their focus to the storyline.
The basic plot of God of War has you taking on the role of Kratos, who is a Spartan warrior. As the game begins, is actually in the process of committing suicide.
And Kratos cast himself from the highest mountain in all of Greece.
And as he falls, he starts having this flashback. And that's actually what the game is, where you're playing this flashback, and you get to basically see what led him to decide to take his own life. Embedded in that flashback is the story of Kratos, who is in search of Pandora's box, which is the only weapon capable of allowing a mortal to kill Ares, who is the God of War.
Now the team has a hero, a storyline, and a cast of enemies to do battle with. But what kind of game will God of War actually be?
Then you have to sit down and go, exactly, okay, this is great, your world is great, your monsters are great, but you're like, what's the mechanic? What do you do?